You're preparing for an important interview but feel worried because you're not confident in your English yet? Don't worry. Welcome to Learning English HTC, where we help you conquer every interview in English with ease. Get ready. Let's get started now.
Hi, Emma. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jack, Senior Technical Recruiter at HTC. Before we dive into the technical part, can you briefly introduce yourself and tell me why you're interested in the Senior Software Engineer position?
Sure, Jack. I recently graduated from the Polytechnic University, majoring in computer science. During my time at university, I worked on several complex software projects, mostly focused on back-end systems and AI applications. While I haven't worked in the industry yet, I've always been drawn to large-scale system design and coding challenges, areas I know are central to senior engineering roles. I see this position as an opportunity to grow rapidly by learning from experienced teams and contributing from day one.
As a Senior Software Engineer, strong fundamentals are critical. Can you walk me through how you would design a scalable URL shortening service like bit.ly?
Certainly. I'd start by outlining the key features. Accept a long URL and return a short one. Redirect from short URL to the original handle. A high number of read-write requests. Ensure uniqueness and avoid collisions. For scalability, I'd consider using a hash function like base62 encoding of a unique ID. Storing URL mappings in a distributed key-value store like Redis or a NoSQL DB like DynamoDB, implementing rate limiting per user IP, caching frequent lookups to reduce DB load, deploying behind a load balancer with auto-scaling groups for high availability.
Great. What trade-offs would you consider when choosing between SQL and NoSQL for this system?
SQL offers strong consistency and structured querying, which is ideal when relationships matter. However, for a high-read, simple, key-value access pattern like this, NoSQL gives better horizontal scalability, lower latency, and easier partitioning. I'd choose NoSQL unless we needed complex analytics on relationships.
Let's shift to coding. Imagine you're writing a function to detect cycles in a directed graph. What approach would you take?
I'd use depth-first search with a recursion stack. I'd keep two sets, one for visited nodes and another for the recursion stack. If during DFS I find a node that's already on the recursion stack, we have a cycle.
What are common mistakes junior developers make when implementing such algorithms?
They often confuse visited versus recursion stack logic or forget to remove nodes from the recursion stack, leading to false positives. Another issue is poor handling of disconnected graphs or not considering edge cases like self-loops.
As a senior engineer, you'd help with architecture decisions. Suppose HTC is building a real-time collaboration tool like Google Docs. What components would you include in the system design?
I'd break it into front-end, handles real-time user input, diff generation WebSocket server, for low-latency bidirectional communication, operational transformation, OT, engine, handles concurrent edits and resolves conflicts, document storage service, persists the state, possibly in version formats, authentication service, user identity and permissions, analytics service, tracks user engagement and performance. To ensure scalability, use message brokers like Kafka to decouple services. Scale WebSocket servers horizontally with sticky sessions. Store snapshots plus diffs in a scalable storage like S3 with metadata in a DB.
This role also includes mentoring junior engineers. Even though you're just starting, how would you approach mentorship or technical leadership in the future?
I believe leadership is about enabling others. I'd start by building trust, offering help, sharing resources, and encouraging questions. I'd document best practices, conduct pair programming, and lead by example in writing clean, tested code. I'd also be open to learning from others, even those less experienced. Everyone brings unique strengths.
Tell me about a time during your studies when you faced a major technical challenge and how you handled it.
In my final year, I worked on a smart traffic management project using machine learning. I struggled with model convergence for weeks. I realized I'd overlooked data pre-processing. I took time to revisit the fundamentals, ran experiments on smaller data sets, and got advice from professors. Eventually, the model reached over 90% accuracy. It taught me resilience and the value of stepping back.
Why do you think you're a good fit for a senior level role despite being a fresh graduate?
I know I have a lot to learn, but I've always tackled challenges at a higher level, taking on complex projects, leading student dev teams, and reading industry level books and white papers. I'm confident I can ramp up quickly, and I bring fresh energy, deep curiosity, and a strong foundation. With mentorship and feedback, I believe I can thrive in this role and grow into a true senior engineer.
Thanks, Emma. Do you have any questions for me or about the role?
Yes, I'd love to hear more about how HTC supports the professional growth of junior engineers and what a typical day looks like for a senior engineer on the team.
Great questions. At HTC, we invest heavily in mentorship and peer reviews. Our senior engineers lead design reviews and also spend time pairing with others. You'll also have a personalized growth plan and access to regular workshops. On a typical day, they code, review PRs, design systems, and work cross-functionally with product and QA teams.
Welcome to the second sample interview questions for sales staff.
Hi, Emma. Thank you for joining us today. Can you please introduce yourself and tell us why you're interested in the senior software engineer role at HTC?
Hi, Jack. Thank you for having me. My name is Emma, and I recently graduated from the Polytechnic University with a degree in computer science. Although I don't have professional experience yet, I've worked on several complex academic projects involving system design, software architecture, and back-end development. I'm very passionate about scalable systems and excited about the chance to learn and grow at a high level from the start of my career. HTC's innovative environment is a perfect place for that.
Let's start with your technical foundation. Can you walk me through how you would design a scalable back-end system for a real-time messaging app?
Certainly. For a real-time messaging app, I would start with a microservices architecture to isolate functionalities such as user management, message delivery, and notification services. For the messaging component, I would implement a WebSocket server to enable real-time bidirectional communication. I'd use a message queue like Kafka to handle message delivery asynchronously and ensure durability. To support scalability, I would use a load balancer, horizontal scaling for stateless services, and a distributed database like Cassandra or MongoDB for message storage. Finally, I'd ensure data consistency using distributed transactions where necessary and apply caching mechanisms, like Redis, for performance improvement.
Good. And how would you handle fault tolerance in such a system?
I'd introduce circuit breakers to prevent cascading failures, retries with exponential backoff, and fallback strategies for degraded service. Also, I'd use health checks and monitoring tools like Prometheus and Grafana to detect and react to failures quickly.
Let's do a bit of problem solving. How would you optimize a function that identifies duplicate entries in a very large data set?
I'd start by analyzing the time and space complexity of the current implementation. If we're talking about a list of items, a naive approach using nested loops would be O(n squared, which is inefficient for large data sets. A better approach would be to use a hash set to keep track of scene elements as we iterate through the list. That would reduce time complexity to O(n), with additional space complexity of O(n). If memory usage is a concern, especially in a low memory environment, I'd consider using Bloom filters or sorting the dataset first and then checking for duplicates in a single pass.
What would you do if this data set is distributed across multiple servers?
I would use a map-reduce approach. In the map phase, each node would identify duplicates locally and emit results. In the reduce phase, we'd aggregate these results and resolve duplicates across the nodes. Frameworks like Apache Hadoop or Spark could be leveraged to handle this efficiently.
What do you know about software engineering principles such as SOLID and how they apply to large-scale systems?
Sure, SOLID stands for Single Responsibility Principle. Each module should have one responsibility. Open-closed principle. Code should be open to extension but closed to modification. Liskov substitution principle. Subtypes should be substitutable for their base types. Interface segregation principle. Avoid forcing clients to depend on unused interfaces. Dependency inversion principle. High-level modules shouldn't depend on low-level modules but on abstractions. In large-scale systems, these principles ensure the code is modular, testable, and easier to maintain as the system grows. For example, adhering to the open-close principle would allow my team to add new features without altering existing, stable code, minimizing the risk of regression.
This role involves mentoring junior developers. How would you approach code reviews and knowledge sharing?
I believe code reviews should be constructive, respectful, and educational. I'd focus on teaching best practices, catching bugs, and suggesting better design patterns. I'd also schedule regular knowledge sharing sessions and encourage pair programming. Even though I'm just starting, I'm eager to both learn from others and share what I know from my academic and personal projects.
Since this is a senior position, we're looking for people who can grow rapidly into leadership roles. How do you plan to bridge the gap between your current level and this expectation?
I have a strong desire to learn and improve. I've already started studying advanced topics like distributed systems, DevOps practices, and cloud architecture. I also participate in open source projects and technical communities. If given the opportunity, I'd continue learning on the job, seek mentorship, and take ownership of small components to gradually build leadership skills.
Do you have any questions for me?
Yes, I'd love to hear more about the current architecture of HTC's core platform and what challenges the senior engineering team is currently focused on.
Thank you for watching today's video. I hope these tips will help you feel more confident in your English interviews. If you found this video helpful, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any valuable content in the future.